Boys and girls, a long, long time ago, Mr. Heatrix and I took a look out at the wild acre, and it didn't look so wild back then. It was just an acre of land that was very plain. But Mr. Heatrix had so many different ideas, and so he and I worked together in planning, and I would draw out sketches and work with the builders so that we could build a lot of the things, all of the things that are out in the wild acre. So we wanted a place called a timber village where kids could play. We wanted there to be a thing that you could climb up to look outside. We wanted to have something that you could have as a balance beam. We wanted a home for all of our tortoises, finally. And we needed to have a place where we could put, if we had goats or something like that. So all of these things were part of our plan, and finally these things have been built. But there was one area in the plan that I really wanted, which was an area called the Old Forest, or in here I called it the Wandering Woods. I had this dream of back when I was in California as a little girl, and I would walk through the woods where there would be these big trees and it looked like an old forest. I would always kind of imagine walking up to one of those trees. So I wanted to have a tree that we would build. And so I made this little model, and then we had some wonderful builders come and build that tree. And the tree, I wanted to call it the storytelling tree, because I always felt like if you put your ear up to the edge of a storytelling tree, that it might tell you a story from long, long ago. So we're still working on trying to make it look like an old forest. I think it would look better if we had the lights off at night and maybe some Christmas lights out there or something like that, and some music that would allow us to kind of feel like it was an old forest. But part of that is that I need your help in adding some magical elements to this section, just so that when kids go into it, it's possible that they would have this kind of feeling here, where it just kind of feels sort of like you could walk in there, and the potential for you finding maybe a little creature or to see something fly past that you didn't know what it was would kind of come to life. Now, part of that for me is that I've dreamed of having little tiny doors that we could attach to some of the trees out there. And the doors that you are going to be making, that's right, you are going to be making a door, could go out into the wild acre for maybe a day or two, stay out there overnight, and then we could go out there and just kind of look for evidence to see if something came or if a creature came by. But eventually you'll be able to bring your door home. Now today you are going to need to plan your door and think about what you're going to do. And we're going to be using real clay from the earth to make it. You're going to start off with a ball of clay, and you'll have 2 rulers on either side of that clay. That's going to help your rolling pin not reach all the way down to the table, because we don't want you to roll your clay to be as thin as a piece of paper, because then it's just going to crack like a cracker. Now, you'll notice that I kind of started here, and please, oh please, trust me when I say that if it is hard to roll it out, pick it up and flip it over. Or you can turn it to the side. As long as you keep picking up your piece of clay, it'll be easier. If it gets on top of that ruler, just scoot the ruler out of the way and keep rotating it. If you want your clay to be tall, then you can roll it out that way. But if you want it to be a little bit more squarish, make sure that you keep rotating it so that the clay rolls out evenly. Once you have your clay rolled out, now you have to start to think about what type of door you want to have. And remember, your door can the idea can be that if you open it, it is like a portal bringing you to another world. Or maybe it's the door of a creature that already lives there. Your door can be wide. It can be tall. It can have a clue in the shape of it, of what kind of place it would bring you to if you went through it. It can also have maybe a hint as to, if you opened it, where you might go. These are all the things you have to think about. Once you have your clay rolled out, you're going to take a popsicle stick and just kind of cut off the bottom so that it's nice and flat. Then you have to plan your shape. I like to use my finger because then I can just kind of redo it until I get it the shape I want. But you want to use most of your clay. You don't want to have a super tiny door. And if you're already thinking, oh, but then I won't have clay to make extra stuff, oh, please don't worry. I got tons of extra clay for you to make add-ons. Now I'm using a paper clip and I'm just dragging it through the clay and it cuts it so perfectly. And then I can remove that extra stuff to use that for later to make some wonderful doodads. Now, on your door, it would be neat to have some texture. This is a little scary for me because sometimes people flatten their door during this part. It's important for you to have your door not get flattened so that it doesn't, again, it doesn't crack like a little saltine cracker, which would be sad. So once you have your thing, you can choose your texture. In this case, this is a plastic stencil. I'm going to take my regular rolling pin, not a texture pin, and I just gently go over it, again, so I don't flatten my door. And when you peel it up, you'll see some texture. Now, the nice thing about this is if you hate what you did, you can always flip your door over and work on the other side. Here's a little mini rolling pin that has like a star-like texture on it. Another option is to take this kind of doily. You can put it over the whole thing and you roll it with a regular rolling pin and it leaves a kind of an interesting texture there. You can use tools. Some kids have been making it look like wood or something, using something like that. I also have burlap that you can press into the clay and then it will leave that kind of a woven texture on there. I also have these plastic sheets that if you roll over it with your rolling pin, it will leave a nice texture on there as well. Once you've got your texture set and your door shape is cut out, now it's time to add things. Notice I'm saying add. I don't want you to draw details on it. I want you to add details. And in this case, I'm making something called a coil, or maybe you could call it a snake. And I'm now using this toothbrush to do a technique called scratch attach. If I scratch the surface of the clay with the toothbrush, it will create just a little bit of mud because, like I said, this clay comes from the earth. There's someone that comes with a bulldozer and they dig it out of the ground and it gets cleaned, and then thankfully they send it to me in a nice little box all cleaned up. But if you smell your clay when you get it, it's going to smell like the earth. It's going to be cold and just kind of moist, and oh, it's so great. But it needs to go into a kiln at 2,000 degrees to become permanently ceramic. So don't take anything home because otherwise it's going to end up mud in your pocket. Now here, this is showing that I don't want you to add to the side. I want you to add on top of your door. Here again, I don't want you to add your coil to the side, but rather everything will be on top of your door. So that's the critical thing there. Now this is a video from another art teacher named Cassie Stevens, and she's working on her creature door. She, instead of doing a coil to make kind of like a solid edge around her door, she's actually rolling out spheres. She cut them in half with her popsicle stick, and now she's preparing the surface with her toothbrush so that she can scratch attach. And she's attaching those little cut in half spheres so that they look almost like cobblestones or little rocks maybe that you would see on an old fireplace or something like that. And so that looks really, really cool. That's another way of building an edge. Now, some of you might be saying, well, what if I don't want to do a coil, and what if I don't want to do cobblestones? Well, that's why you want to look at your idea sheet, because there's a gazillion ideas on there. But it is nice to have something going around the edge to kind of frame it. Now, here she took a coil and she put it along the top, but she didn't like it. So now she took it off and she's rolling it again into a different shape. Remember, you are in charge of the clay. You tell the clay what you want to have happen. If you don't like something, take it off. But in the same token, by the same token, if you want that clay to stay on there, you have to scratch attach it. If you don't scratch attach it, when your door dries, everything is just going to fall right off of it. Remember, you're the boss of it, so you have to say, clay, make friends. You're staying with this clay for the rest of your life. Deal with it. And you do that by scratch attaching. Here she just made a tiny little slab in an oval shape, and she scratch attached that for a window. Now she's rolling out a very tiny coil so that she can scratch attach that along the edge of her window. Super cute. And kids have been making windows in the shapes of hearts or leaves or dolphins or whatever it is that you're wanting to kind of give a hint as to what your door is for. Here she did a coil to make a vine, and she scratch attached that on there. And once again, instead of drawing a detail, I want for you to make things. Here she's making some little leaves that she can attach to her vine. And she's also going to show you how she's rolling out a coil and pressing it down. And now taking that pressed down coil and just rolling it up into a flower. It's a super easy way of making a flower. You can scratch attach those and stick those on there in no time. When you're adding details, that's great, but please don't become so aggressive with the tools that you end up poking holes into your door. That's just sad and terrible. And lastly, look over your idea sheet to get an idea. I can't wait to see what you're going to do. Remember, you're starting by rolling out your clay. Have fun.